Today we are going to be learning about addition and subtraction. Our objectives include learning how to add and subtract within 20, so this means we will be focusing just on numbers 1 through 20. We will also be learning how to remember addition and subtraction problems, and finally we will learn how to do some story problems. First off, we are going to start with addition. Addition is a total or sum of two numbers. This means you are combining two numbers together. For example, if you have 4 apples and I have 3 apples, we can count them to find out how many apples we have together. That's adding. The words total and sum are very important when we start doing story problems. These words let us know if we need to add or do something else with the numbers like subtract. Our second bullet point states that adding is commutative. This means that the order of our numbers does not matter. If we are adding 3 and 7, we can put either number first and we will still have the same answer. For example, 3 plus 7 equals 10, and 7 plus 3 equals 10 too. We will be learning about 4 different ways of learning how to add today. Our first way is called counting on. Counting on allows us to start with a number and keep counting up until we get to our answer. If our addition problem asks us what does 5 plus 3 equal, we know where to start. In counting on, we take the first number of the addition problem and start there. In our example, we are starting with 5. Now it says to add 3 to 5. From here, we can count up 3 times to get to our answer. Let's give it a try. Start at 5 and count up 3 times. 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's our answer, 8. Next, we are going to learn about our doubles. First off, doubles are when you add two numbers together that are the same. For example, 3 and 3, or 7 and 7. Doubles are something you have to memorize to help with math problems you will learn later on. Also, knowing your doubles will help with timed math sheets. When we are learning about doubles, start to think of things you know are doubles. For example, 1 plus 1 equals 2. What do we have 2 of? Eyes, ears, hands, legs. Now we know when we are adding 1 and 1, we can think of these things. We have 1 right eye and 1 left eye, but together we have 2 eyes. Now when you're adding other doubles, think of other things in our life that we can compare them to. If we are adding 2 and 2, we can think of a car, 2 wheels in the front and 2 wheels in the back, but all together we have 4 wheels. For 5s, we know that we have 5 fingers on each hand and 10 all together. This means 5 plus 5 equals 10. If you're helping your mom or dad bake something in the kitchen, you could count the eggs in the carton. There are 6 in the front and 6 in the back. If we know that 12 eggs come in a carton, then we know 6 plus 6 equals 12. Now that we learned about doubles, we can learn about doubles plus 1. This means we just add 1 to the doubles we already know. If we know that 5 plus 5 equals 10, then we can figure out what 5 plus 6 is. We already know that 6 is 1 more than 5, and that 5 plus 5 is 10. 1 more than 10 would be 11. And there we go. We just added 5 plus 6. Let's try some practice examples together. Our first example is 3 plus 4. What is 3 plus 3? 6. Yes. Now we need to add 1 more to 6, which would be 7. That's right. Now let's try 4 plus 5. Can anyone tell me what this equals? Perfect. Our answer is 9. How about 6 plus 7? Can we use any real-life examples to get to our answer? Yes, we can use our cooking example. 6 plus 6 equals 12, just like the eggs in the carton, and then add 1 more and we have 13. Finally, we have 9 plus 10. This one we can figure out 2 ways. Our first way would be using our doubles plus 1, adding 9 and 9, and then adding 1 more to equal 19. Or since we are adding a single digit number, which would be numbers 1 through 9 to 10, we can drop the 0 on the 10 and replace it with our single digit number. This means we now have 1, 9, which is 19. Our final way we're going to learn how to add today is by making 10. This means we're going to find numbers that can add up to equal 10. What numbers can we use to make 10? Yes, we can use any 2 single digit numbers to create 10. Let's start with 1. If we have 1, how many more do we need to get to 10? 9. 1 plus 9 equals 10. Now let's try 2. If we start with 2, how many more do we need to get to 10? 8. We need 8 more. Now if we start with 3, does anyone know how many we need to get to 10? Yes, that's right. We need 7 more. Does anybody see a pattern? If our start number goes up 1, then our second number goes down 1. So if we know that 3 plus 7 equals 10, what would our next two numbers be? 4 and 6. That's because 4 is 1 more than 3, and 6 is 1 less than 7. Great! Finally, we have one more pair of numbers that we can add to 10. What is special about these two numbers? Does anybody know? Yes, they are part of our doubles. We learned a few minutes ago. 5 plus 5. Now it's your turn to try some addition problems on your own. Think of different ways we talked about when you are trying to add these by yourself. If you need help, then raise your hand and I will come around to help you. Now let's go over some answers. The answer to 6 plus 7 is 13. 8 plus 9 is 17. 13 plus 4 is 17. 19 plus 1 is 20. Now for the next four, I would like someone to raise your hand and tell me how they got to this answer and what their answer is. For 3 plus 13, what can we use? We can use counting up to see that it is 16. Great. What is 4 plus 6? What is 6 plus 6? 12. Yes, we can use our doubles. What is 4 plus 6? 10. How did you get to these two numbers? Adding up to 10. Great. And finally, 10 plus 3. Remember, we have two different ways we can learn this. We can either drop the 0 and add the 3 to get 1, 3, 13, or we can add up 10, 11, 12, 13. Good job. Now that we learned how to add, now we can learn how to subtract. Subtracting is the difference of two numbers. Difference is our key word here that tells us we need to take away. Subtracting means we are trying to find out what the answer is if we start with one number and take away another number. For example, if we have 10 minus 2, we start with 10 and take away 2. How many are we left with after we take away 2? We are left with 8. For subtraction, order does matter. If we take 2 away from 10, we are left with 8. But if we take 10 away from 2, we get a negative number, which is below 0. This is why we cannot switch the order of the numbers we are subtracting. Very similar to counting on when we are adding, we can count backwards to subtract. We can do the same thing just going down instead of up. So first of all, you need to find your start number. If we are doing 5 minus 3, our start number would be 5. Now how many are we taking away from 5? Correct, we're taking away 3. Now let's start with 5 and count backwards 3 times. 5, 4, 3, 2. Yes, 2 is our answer. We stop at 2 because that means we have counted backwards 3 times. The number we stop on is our answer. Now it's your turn to try. Remember, now we are subtracting, which means we are counting backwards. Try these problems by yourself, and if you need help, then raise your hand and I will come help you. Now let's go over the answers for these problems. We will answer these problems out loud as a class, so let's start with the first one. 6 minus 3 is 3. 7 minus 4 is 3. 13 minus 3 is 10. 20 minus 2 is 18. 4 minus 1 is 3. 16 minus 10 is 6. 3 minus 3 is 0. And 18 minus 5 is 13. Good job, everyone. If you need some help when you are doing addition and subtraction problems, here are some tips that can help you out. First of all, you can draw a picture. If you have 3 apples and you are adding 2 more, draw 3 apples to start and then draw 2 more. Count up all your apples to find out how many you have. Another thing you can use is a number line. If you use a number line, you can find your start number, point to it, then either count up or down depending on if you are adding or subtracting. If you don't like drawing pictures or using a number line, tally marks might help you. If you are doing 6 plus 3, draw 6 tally marks, then draw 3 more. How many do you have now? Or if you have 6 minus 3, then draw 6 tally marks and erase 3. How many are you left with? Finally, when you are at home, you can use flashcards to help you memorize addition and subtraction facts. The more you can recognize the numbers and remember what the answer is, the easier it will be on your math timesheets. Now you're going to move on to learn how to solve story problems. Story problems are mathematical problems put into words. There are many times we use story problems, such as at the grocery store, dealing with money, or even while playing. First off, we have to find out how to solve them. Story problems can have a lot of information in them. Sometimes we need to know all of the information to find out our answers, and sometimes we don't. First off, we can find the facts they give us. Once you find a fact, something that will help you solve the problem, most of the time it's of a number, underline it. Once you have underlined all the important information, you can see what the problem is asking you. Once you understand what you are trying to find, cross out the facts if you don't need to use any. Now you can solve the problem. In our example, the problem says, there are 10 people in Lisa's class. 7 of them get on the bus. 3 get off at the first stop. How many people are left on the bus? Let's start with the first thing. Let's underline our facts. We know that there are 10 people in the class. This is a fact. We know that there are 7 of them riding the bus. This is a fact. And we know that 3 people get off at the first stop. That is also a fact. Now let's find out what they are asking us. At the end of the problem, it says how many students are left on the bus. This is what we are trying to figure out. Now we can cross out any information we don't need. If only 7 kids ride the bus, and we want to know how many are left on the bus after the first stop, we do not need to know how many kids are in the class to begin with. We can cross that out. Finally, we can set up our mathematical problem and solve it. If we have 7 kids on the bus and 3 get off, we are subtracting. Take a minute to figure out how many kids are left on the bus if we start with 7 and then 3 got off. Yes, now there's only 4 people on the bus. Great job! Now we have our first example we can work through together. We knew that 6 birds were sitting in a tree. Let's underline this because it is a fact. Now we know that 4 more flew up into the tree. Underline this because it is another fact. Now it asks how many birds we have now. Since there is nothing we have to cross out, set up our problem. We start with 6, so let's write 6 down. This is our start number. If 4 more birds fly up into the tree, we're adding 4 more. Now we know our equation is 6 plus 4. We can count up to figure out that we have 10 birds all together. Good job! Here is our second example we're going to do together. The first sentence says that Julie has 14 crayons. We are going to underline this because it is a fact. Now it says she gives 4 away to Sarah. This is another fact. Now it asks us how many crayons does Julie have now. Let's go ahead and set up our equation. We know that Julie has 14 crayons to start with. Let's write it down to 14 because this is our start number. Now we know she gives 6 of her crayons to Sarah. 6 crayons to Sarah. This means she no longer has them, which would be taking them away. What do we call it when we take away a number from another number? Subtraction. Now we know our equation is 14 minus 6. Let's count backwards to find out how many crayons Julie has now. 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Yes, now she has 8. Take a few minutes and try to do this problem on your own. Remember to use the steps we talked about to help set up your problem. If you need any help, raise your hand and I will try to help you. Okay, now let's go over this as a class. How many facts are we going to underline? Yes, we can underline that there were 20 kids on the bus, that 5 got off at the first stop, and that 3 more get off at the second stop. Now what are we trying to figure out? Great, we're trying to figure out how many students are left on the bus after the second stop. Now let's set up our equation. This one is kind of tricky because we have 2 different mathematical problems in one. To start, we can write down 20 for our start number, and then we are taking away 5. 20 minus 5 is 15. 15 is our new start number, and we're subtracting 3 more, which leaves us with 12 kids. And that's the answer to our story problem. Great job today, kids. We covered a lot, so make sure you go home and practice, practice, practice.